Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you another of my top 10 lists, and today's top 10 list focuses on my favourite top 10 Michael Keaton films. One of my favourite all-time actors. He's got an incredible body of work. He's remained consistently good throughout his career. He's tried many different genres. Action, horror, comedy, romantic comedy, dramas, and he's been equally good in each of them. So this is a list that focuses on my personal favourite Michael Keaton films. There are a couple of omissions here. It's not because I don't think they're good films. Certainly things like Spotlight, which is a fairly recent film. It's just that I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to pretend I've seen a film and put it on there just because I think people assume it should be on a list. These are the films that I've genuinely seen by Michael Keaton that I think are his best. So again, as always, there are some that don't quite make the list that I think deserve a mention. And all of these, and you're probably going to hear this a lot with this list, I think all of these films are underrated. We've got Multiplicity, which is like a science fiction comedy where Michael Keaton basically ends up cloning himself. A very, very underrated performance by Michael Keaton here on this film, and it's definitely worth checking out. Another film is called Desperate Measures, where he plays this really fantastic bad guy who goes up against Andy Garcia. It's a really, really underrated action thriller, definitely worth checking out. And I think a very, very underrated horror film that Michael Keaton did was White Noise. It's a film that I've just recently picked up again on DVD. I'm going to rewatch it and probably review it. I went to the cinema to see this when it came out, and I remember really, really enjoying it, and I think Michael Keaton gives a really fantastic and intense performance in this film. Right, so coming in at number 10, I've put Spider-Man Homecoming. Now I think ever since probably the middle of 2014, 2013, he had a bit of a renaissance in his career, Michael Keaton. And in 2017 he did Spider-Man Homecoming, and he played basically the bad guy in this film, the Vulture. I think he was arguably the best thing in this film. He's always been good at playing villainous roles, and he does this one with such great nuance and some great layers, and you can kind of understand his point of view in many of the things in this film. I just think it's a really, really great performance by him in a really entertaining film. Coming in at number 9, another villainous performance by Michael Keaton. Pacific Heights. Now this was released in 1990, pretty much at the height of his fame. It was after Batman, and he was hugely popular, and it was quite a brave decision, I think, to take this film on. He basically plays this psychopath who stalk Matthew Modine and Melanie Griffith's character. He plays this absolute psychopath that just stalks him. He plays the nice guy initially, and then he gets more and more sinister as the film goes on, and it has a really, really nightmarish end to the film. A very, very good film and a great performance by Michael Keaton. Coming at number 8, one of the films that probably not many of you may have seen, and it's a film called One Good Cop. It came out in 1991, and it's a very underrated film. He plays a cop whose partner dies, they're very, very close friends, and he has to adopt his partner's children with his wife, played by Rennie Russo. And he really, really struggles from that point on. To be an adoptive father, his marriage and everything struggles because of it, and he ends up kind of taking a bit of a bribe as a police officer to try and get by, and it's like a redemption story after that. It's a really fantastic film, very, very underrated, and I think the title kind of put a lot of people off, but it's worth checking out. Coming in at number 7, released in 2016, The Founder. This is the true story tale of how McDonald's, the restaurant chain, fast food restaurant chain, came to be. And Michael Keaton plays the guy who basically was the mastermind behind it. He didn't create and invent McDonald's, but he turned it into the fast food giants that it became in a fairly unscrupulous way. It's a really, really fantastic film here. Michael Keaton plays this really actually very devious character and a bit of a villainous character, but he comes across as a pretty nice guy in this film. It's definitely worth checking out. This is one of my favourite films in 2016, and you should definitely give it a go. Coming in at number 6. Now this is the film that gave him his renaissance, I think, in his career. Birdman. He got him his Oscar nomination. I personally believe he should have got the Oscar for this film. It's almost a self-biographical piece about this aging actor that once played this superhero early in his career that exploded his career, and he is now an aging actor, can't get parts anymore, and he's trying to put on this serious play that nobody else seems to be taking seriously. It's a really, really brilliant film with some incredible performances by everybody, but most of all Michael Keaton. Coming at number 5, The Paper, another one of his films that probably many people haven't seen, or maybe have just bypassed, and it's a really great film. It's like a comedy drama where he plays a journalist at a newspaper. It's got a great cast. It's got Glenn Close, Marisa Tomei, Randy Quaid and Robert Duvall. His wife's pregnant, heavily pregnant, and he's trying to get this brilliant story before the paper goes into print the following day, and he wants to get the right news story. It's funny, it's dramatic, it's got some brilliant performances, and it is definitely one of his films from the 90s that you should certainly be checking out. Coming in at number 4, I love this film, The Dream Team. It came out in 1989. I did a classic film review on this, and it was one of the very first I ever did on the channel, my reviews. It's basically about 4 mental patients living in a care home, basically a mental asylum, and they're allowed to go out for the day to watch a baseball match, and the person that's looking after them gets injured and they are left to fend for themselves on the streets of New York. It's brilliant. Great cast: Michael Keaton, Christopher Lloyd, Peter Boyle, Stephen Furst, and they are all incredible in this film, and it is definitely a film you should certainly be watching. It's brilliant. Coming in at number 3, again another underrated film and performance by Michael Keaton. A very emotional and moving film called My Life. It had Nicole Kidman in the film. I don't know why this film doesn't get as much recognition as it deserves. He basically plays a guy with terminal cancer who decides to document his life leading up to his death so that he can leave some kind of record for his child when it's born. It's a hard-hitting film, but also really beautiful at the same time, and I promise you, watching this film you will be moved and you will certainly cry. It is a beautiful film, I think. Coming in at number 2, Beetlejuice. This was a hard decision. I was very close to making this the number 1. By his performance alone it deserves to be number 1, because his performance in this film is just it's just incredible. You've seen the film, you know how good he is in this. They've been toying with the idea of doing a Beetlejuice 2 for many years. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I think it could still happen because he's going to be in makeup and stuff. He'll still be able to pull this manic role off. Such a great film, a classic film from the 80s. I will of course be doing a classic film review of this at some point. And for me it is just a wonderful Tim Burton film. I think this is probably one of his best. And another Tim Burton film, I almost said his best until I realised what was at number 1, and that is Batman. Wow, I remember when Michael Keaton was cast in this film, and even though the internet wasn't around in them days, it was all over the newspapers. Nobody was happy about it. Everybody was like, what, Michael Keaton as Batman? How wrong everybody was. I remember going to the cinema to watch this and just being super excited. It was an absolute blockbuster film, incredible to watch, and I think personally it's the film that really put him on the map as a performer, and it's just a wonderful film and deserving to be number 1. So there you go, that is my top 10 Michael Keaton, my favourite Michael Keaton films, and just finishing recording my top 10 there, I'm having doubts about my number 1 and number 2. I think depending on what side of the bed I wake up on, I think the number 1 and number 2 will be changing places quite often. But I think you can see from this list of top 10 Michael Keaton films that he's a brilliant performer, a brilliant actor. He can do anything in his career, and he's tried many things. He's been very, very brave in some of his choices, and most of them have paid off. And I think many of his films and many of his performances have been deeply underrated, and I think he's been deserving of far more Oscar nominations than he certainly got. So there you go, my favourite Michael Keaton films. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'll see you back for more reviews on Screen Stars, of course, very, very soon. And don't forget, give me some suggestions in the comments of top 10 lists. I've got some I'm working on. I'm going to do some directors' top 10 lists. I've got plenty more actors, but your suggestions are always welcome. And if they are performers and they are topics that I'm interested in and I've got decent knowledge on, then I will of course do them. I don't ever want to do these top 10 lists and pretend and make them up. And if I don't know an actor particularly well, or I don't think there's enough of his films that I can make a top 10 list of my favourites, I just won't do it. I won't pretend that I like a film if I don't. So that's why sometimes it's quite difficult to do these lists, because believe it or not, you look through some of your favourite actors and things like that and try and find 10 certainly films on their list that you think are all-time classics that you absolutely love. It's not as easy as you think sometimes. But anyway, I digress. Thank you very much for watching, everybody.